Hello, so I watched some movies recently and I'd quite like to talk about them and let you know if you should watch them too. Alright, here we go. The first movie I wanted to talk about was Luther, The Fallen Sun. I really liked the original Luther show. It had its moments of the typical strengths and weaknesses you'd expect from a BBC drama of its caliber. It had some really stupid moments and it left a lot to question. But overall I thought it was a pretty great show. Idris Elba was absolutely fantastic in the title role, and that hasn't changed in this movie. Overall I think I'd probably give the show an 8. Again, it isn't perfect, but it really does excite the audience. It has a lot of interesting characters and storylines, and overall it's just a pretty great show. This movie is pretty much what you'd expect, I suppose. It's a surprisingly dark plot. It has to, of course, fit into the modern world, so it's all about snuff films on the internet, live streaming death and murder and all that stuff. Andy Serkis plays the role of the villain brilliantly. In this story, Luther is now a disgraced detective chief inspector, because all the stuff he did throughout the TV show comes back to haunt him. It felt a little bit glossed over, but I mean, it's fine. We have to focus on the whole main mystery that's going on, so I can't be too angry about that. The film definitely has some pretty great, tense, and interesting moments, and the mystery as a whole is, while a little bit cliched, still pretty good. It has its stupid moments, like the ending, for example, which I guess I'm going to spoil, so you've been warned. So of course, because Luther is Luther, he breaks out of prison with the help of this, I guess, underground weapons arm dealing guy. You know, they intercept him while he's being relocated to a different prison after he entices a riot with the help of some officers that he bribed. So most of the movie is him on the run as, I guess, a kind of vigilante trying to solve the mystery, because he feels as though he's the only one that can really do it, because the fucking lunatic David Roby, who also happens to be dating the mother of one of his victims that he blackmailed, wants Luther specifically. That's why he wanted him in prison. He knew he couldn't kill him, but he knew he could give him the ultimate humiliation and completely disgrace him and strip him of his DCI badge. So after the over-the-top and kind of silly action scene in the Arctic takes place, Luther somehow survives drowning, but I guess David wasn't as lucky, and he gets taken into some kind of protective custody so he doesn't have to go back to jail, and then he's approached by the MI5, so I guess he's just gonna be back working with law enforcement instead of being in prison like he should be, even though that was the point of the film, that even though he was trying to solve the mystery, he was still a criminal on the run, and Cynthia Erivo's character was like trying to find him, even though they were kind of loosely working with each other through his old boss Martin Schenk. Yeah, it's a little bit all over the place. But like I said, the film does have a lot going for it. I wouldn't say it's scary. It definitely has its kind of unnerving moments, and it is dark, and I do appreciate that about this movie. It sticks to the TV show's grittiness and in a way kind of expands on it. Like, Andy Serkis's character is really fucked up. What he does is he steals people's information, finds out dark secrets, and he basically threatens them, blackmails them to expose these secrets if they don't do what he wants them to do, which more often than not results in them being live streamed dying, whether it would be hanging themselves and then burning to death, or just being rigorously tortured in a dark cryptic cabin, which also just so happens to be underneath the Antarctic, or wherever the hell that was supposed to be. Oh yeah, and of course one of the detectives is on Serkis's payroll because he's also being blackmailed, so that's cool. But I would say, having waited 4 years for more Luther, it could have been a little bit more interesting. I'm kind of glad Alice isn't in it, because I feel like they stretched that story more than they had to. I kind of would have liked Paul McGann's character to return, even if it was just a little cameo appearance, but whatever. What I really liked about season 5 was that, also having waited 4 years for that to come out, it was actually a really satisfying and really enjoyable continuation of a show that for a long time a lot of people thought was over. Well, I'm pretty sure the show is over. I guess maybe they're going to be focusing on films, or maybe they'll be moving to Netflix exclusively. I don't really know. I don't know what they're trying to do with this. But yeah, I guess if you're a fan of the show, watch it. If you're not, then you're going to get nothing out of this. And I'm giving this one a 6 out of 10. Another movie I just saw was Shazam! Fury of the Gods, and I actually really loved it. I'm a really big fan of the original Shazam movie. I would probably say it's my favorite in this lineup of DC EU movies, or the Snyderverse as it's more affectionately called. What I really loved about the original Shazam was that it didn't take itself too seriously, and it kind of reminded me of the original Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies. It was very goofy, it was kind of in its own self-contained bubble outside of other superhero universes. Overall, it was just a very joyous experience, and I was glad I got to experience it. I even have it on DVD, I'm pretty sure. And I would happily watch it again over most of the other stuff that this universe has to offer. Shazam! Fury of the Gods is pretty much the same movie. What I also liked about Shazam was it had these surprisingly dark moments, and Shazam! Fury of the Gods also doesn't let down. When I say dark, I mean it's some straight up horror content. They have that in this movie as well. It has the same level of self-awareness and carefreeness and lightheartedness as the first movie though. It focuses focuses more on family, and that's a big thing in that Billy just doesn't want his family to separate. And of course, by clinging onto them even more, he's just driving them further apart. Mary wanted to go to university, but she couldn't, and she wants to meet people her own age, but she kind of can't, and the one time she does, she's bullied for being hungover. Darla's still kind of her just cute old self, so there's not a lot really going on there. She's just kind of funny, particularly in her Shazam form. Zachary Levi is again the standout performance for me, as is Jack Dylan Grazer. And of course, he wants to do his own thing, meet some women, be Captain Every Power Senior as opposed to Captain Every Power Junior, which was kind of a funny joke. Eugene just wants to stick to his video games and exploring and learning more about the weird layer they have, and that's what he's doing. Pedro continues to be his shy and sensitive self while he's human. He's a little bit more outgoing when he's played by DJ Cotrona, but overall he's still the most self-contained of the group, and he has a little gay subplot, and that was really cool. I actually really liked it. They brought back the wizard dude, who ended up being a really fun and enjoyable character. They gave him a lot more personality compared to the first film, and what I love most is that they fully embrace his role as the kind of mentor and guide for these children. Not utterly and completely, but when he gets involved with them, it's like, yeah, he's the wizard dude that's going to help them out and make sure everything's okay. And he's finally convinced by the end of the movie, even though he was hesitant at first, that Billy was indeed the right champion. Even though he was a fucking idiot for breaking that staff and just, you know, throwing it away. The parents are back and they are also pretty good. They're not in it that much, but of course they have to learn that their children are, you know, superheroes. Unfortunately, I don't think there's going to be a Shazam 3 because this film's already considered a box office disappointment, which really annoys me because out of all of these movies, it's definitely the one that deserves to be making money right now. But hey, everyone's looking forward to The Flash, right? That looks so good. I really liked the dynamic between the sisters, Aspira, Calypso, and Anthea, or Anne, I guess as we'll call her. That genuinely surprised me. I was not expecting that because I don't know really anything about Greek gods or their daughters or whatever. Their motivations made sense. I mean, of course, one of them out of the three of them is going to be more evil, one of them's a bit more neutral, and one of them's actually just kind of a good girl, and she actually wants to help the heroes, and she slowly realizes that. Even though she's known Freddy for like 5 minutes, it's, you know, again, it's like Spider-Man Sam Raimi logic, so I don't mind that much. I thought that was all very cute. Jack Dylan Grazer and Rachel Zegler definitely have some chemistry together, almost as much as Zachary Levi does with him. I'm going to get into some spoiler talk right now, so there's just a little heads up for that, so you've been warned. 3, 2, 1. The post-credits scene. I unfortunately walked out before I had a chance to see the post-credit scene with Dr. Savannah and Mastermind, or whatever his name is, so I can't say anything about that, but I can talk about the mid-credit scene. So this film definitely ties into Black Adam in the sense that, well, not only are the characters basically destined to fight each other for obvious reasons from a storyline perspective, but they make a joke about how Shazam is supposed to be in the Justice Society and he's offered by these agents of Waller, and it was a genuinely hilarious and really enjoyable scene, but unfortunately it just isn't consequential because this universe is being rebooted, and even if Zachary Levi does make it into the new DCU with his Shazam, that really doesn't mean anything for the Justice Society. I mean, they were fun, interesting characters, they weren't overly fleshed out or completely complex, but I don't think they're gonna make it into the DCU unless James Gunn just decides, oh yeah, out of all the things in Black Adam, I actually really liked those guys, which to be fair he could, and we could still get Shazam in there in the Justice Society and maybe bring Dwayne Johnson back, but at the end of the day, I just don't think that's gonna happen. But as disappointing as it is, it was a nice little tease, but ultimately it's just a tease for something that we're never gonna get. And now I guess it does make a bit more sense what Dwayne Johnson was trying to do by having the Justice Society be introduced in that movie. I genuinely thought the performances in the movie from the villains were absolutely amazing, except for Calypso. Lucy Liu's generally a good actor, but I didn't like her in this movie. She had some funny lines, but that's more so the dialogue than it is anything else. You know, the kind of awkward, old-fashioned warriors talking a modern language. What is this Gatorade? That was pretty funny, but she was probably the weakest out of the three. I thought the special effects were definitely improved upon from the first movie, I'll say that. That's kind of all I really have to say about this movie. I just think it's a fun superhero movie, which again is kind of inconsequential considering. I was actually kind of hoping that maybe this would just be spun off into its own Spider-Man Sam Raimi style trilogy, you know, in its own self-contained bubble and having its own silly, goofy, cheesy adventures, but it just isn't the case. I liked the story, I liked the characters, I really liked the whole thing about family. It was genuinely quite cute. It had some genuinely kind of heartbreaking moments. And the Wonder Woman cameo was a really nice touch. I actually really enjoyed it. They even made a joke about it where he almost kisses her, but it's the wizard's face earlier in the movie. That was pretty funny. So yeah, go and see it. I'm actively encouraging you to do that. It might not tie into the greater DCU, but it is something. And I'm giving this one a 7 out of 10. Another movie I saw was Scream 6 Cream. They didn't call it 5 Cream, but they called it Screvi. And, I didn't like this movie that much. I guess I should get the positives out of the way. The performances, for the most part, are okay. The kill scenes and the blood and the violence are, again, for the most part, pretty great. Like, it's a very aggressive movie, and I appreciate that about it. The Samara Weaving corpse effects looked genuinely awful for some reason. It kind of just looked like they sprayed some minced meat and fake blood all over her stomach, but whatever. Everything else looked pretty great. I thought the opening scene was genuinely quite good. It was a fun little twist that instead of getting 2 more, I guess, film student dudes trying to do these killings and finish Richie's movie, they just get killed off by another Ghostface who has a completely different motivation. That was actually kind of clever. That's kind of everything I have to say. Overall, the film didn't make me angry, but there's a lot I didn't like about it. And most of it is story related, so I'm gonna give a spoiler warning. I'm just gonna say it, the way they wrote out Sydney in this movie was so fucking cliched and stupid, it actually kind of pissed me off. She deserves her happy ending. It was so stupid. It actually made me sigh deeply while I was sitting there in the cinema. This film is also surprisingly goofy, and I don't think a lot of it was intentional. During the final chase scene, Chad throws a fucking camera at Ghostface, which was really funny. I do like they brought back Kirby Reed, but they do this stupid thing at the end where Chad and Kirby suffer completely fatal injuries, and it's not like Scream 4 where it's like Sydney surviving did kind of make sense, like they were just a few stab wounds. They literally get fucking decimated by the people attacking them, and they're still alive. It was genuinely really stupid, like really stupid. They do the Billy Loomis ghost thing again, and they don't do it as much, so it didn't piss me off as much, but I still thought it was really stupid. They again touch this idea that Sam Carpenter is like secretly psychotic and she could snap and become Ghostface at any moment, and I'm like, yeah, that's all well and cool, but it's like, you know, she's actually dangerous, right? She's not like Sydney where she'll just shoot the person in the head. She's actually like incredibly dangerous and potentially a psychopath herself. I guess you can give the argument, yeah, she kills in the name of good, but she still has this voice in her head convincing her to do bad. At this point, why don't they just do that? It's obvious and it's kind of silly, but they could just do it. I don't think anyone would care that much. I mean, it might be more interesting to do the whole Ghostface perspective thing. They've never done that before. They don't even make jokes about that in the movie. And that's another thing. The meta humor is so annoying. I really do not like Jasmine Savoy Brown as Mindy Meeks. I find her genuinely irritating. She's trying to do this Randy thing, and I guess that makes sense because her and her brother are the nephew and niece of Randy, but it just doesn't work. I think Chad could maybe do it, but they just don't really try that hard, and they really try and emphasize that Mindy is the Randy-like one with her energy. Maybe you could just remove Mindy entirely and make Chad a combination of the 2 personalities, the jockey type and also the Randy goofy type. I think that would probably work a lot better. You just don't really need Mindy in the movie. And I really don't mean to be mean, but Courtney Cox just looks really weird, and with all the meta humor, they could at least get away with making one joke about how she's clearly had Botox and some unspeakable work done, but they don't do it, and I'm like, okay, I guess we can't make fun of Courtney Cox, but we can make fun of our own terrible writing and make fun of the cliches and make fun of the fact that this is now a franchise, and we're going to do another scene where we talk about the rules, and I get it, every franchise has their tropes, Anakin and Luke getting their hands cut off, the Thing starting out as an animal and then turning into more of a human being. Like, I get it, every franchise has their little thing that they do, but it's so fucking annoying. It's genuinely annoying. I hate these scenes. They are so in excess, and you can just tell the writer thinks they're being way more clever than they actually are, but they're not. Yes, everybody's a suspect. We get it. That's literally the whole point of the conversation. You could literally just start with, we're all suspects, and that'd be that. Okay, now as for the Ghostface twist, and I actually kind of saw it coming from the moment that it was implied. I hate to be that guy, but I saw it coming. So it turns out the detective was actually Richie's father, and the really awkward dude that I think kind of looks a bit like me for some reason is his son, and the roommate who we thought died but didn't, because I guess he just moved in and replaced her body with someone else, because that makes sense, is his daughter, and they wanted revenge for Richie's murder. And this would all be fine if Richie wasn't like a terrible villain and a terrible twist in the last terrible Scream movie that you made, but he was, and they do this whole thing where I guess he made student films about the stab movies. Oh yeah, and they also wind up in this whole big museum, I guess, of all the Ghostface legacy stuff, like the broken television set, which actually is used to kill someone, which I thought was kind of cool. All the different costumes and masks that all the different killers wore. And I guess the detective set it up so those two students that wanted to do legacy killings in the beginning but were then murdered by the detective and his children bought the place and put it in their name so it would look like that they did it. And of course we're made to think that Kirby's Ghostface for a minute, but then it turns out she actually isn't. What a red herring. Like, oh, she hasn't been safe or stable and she hasn't been with the FBI for 2 months, which literally makes no sense. Like, not one character thinks to question the fact, well, how the fuck did they get like an official document or whatever saying that the FBI now has jurisdiction? Like, how? I'm pretty sure at least one character would have said, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense. Is the detective lying to us and is he potentially Ghostface? Because there's no way in hell an FBI agent who's been sacked for 2 months could fucking claim jurisdiction officially. Like, what are you talking about? Kirby's been unsound of mind and fired for 2 months. You fucking liar. Are you Ghostface? That's what I would have said. Yeah, the climactic battle itself is, I guess, kind of fun and it's beautifully gory and violent. So that was, I guess, good. Again, Sam fucking murders someone. Just do it. Just do a film from Sam's perspective where she snaps and becomes Ghostface. We've never seen a Ghostface perspective movie. That would be good. That would be so great. That would be so meta, wouldn't it? Saw all over again. There was one actually kind of clever thing that no character in the franchise has ever thought to do before that I kind of liked. When Gail's on the phone to Ghostface while she's trying to find him and shoot him, she says, "Can you hold please?" And he literally goes, what? And then she dials the number and she hears the ringing so she knows where he is. I was like, okay, no one in the series has ever actually thought to do that before, and that's really good. The score is not only really generic, but it's used so frustratingly and overbearingly. There are actually scenes like the subway scene that we've all seen from the trailer where it would actually be scarier if there were no music cues, if it was silent and deadly. It's the exact same problem that the previous movie had. It's just annoying. I did find it kind of funny how the therapist was literally so traumatized by everything she said, he just refused to fucking treat her anymore and reported it to the police. I don't know if therapists actually do that, but yeah, it was kind of funny. And again, I don't know why they don't just do it. Bring Stu back. It would have been so much more interesting. In fact, you know what? I'm going to help you right now with the script for Scream 7, because I know you're going to make it, or whatever you call it, 7 Cream. I don't know and I don't care. Why don't you have it be that Stu Marcus survived? You even hinted at this movie that there's a conspiracy theory if he's even dead or not, because you just love to tease people like that. He's alive. He's in some kind of protective custody. He's reformed. He's still a bit loony. They go to him to seek assistance to get into the head of the latest Ghostface killer, like a Hannibal Lecter type character. That would be so meta. And I don't know, maybe he's not the murderer. Maybe he just shows up for that one scene and that's it. We got what we wanted. Stu Marker's back. He's confirmed alive. He might not be Ghostface, but here he is, okay? Boom. Oh, the police were bribed into doing a false death report so that he could live a normal life and get a second chance because his family were very wealthy or some shit like that. You could just do that. This film franchise, as you call it, it's no longer a series, it's a franchise, could literally just get away with that amount of stupidity because it's been getting away with it for a very long time. Not even stupidity, but just implausibility. Like, do you prefer it when I use that word, implausibility? I hope so. I also noticed that one of the masks on the train while they're getting hunted by Ghostface was a fox mask I used to have when I was a kid. That was kind of funny. I liked that. It's a personal thing, but you know. I will say one other good thing about this movie. There is a little exchange that Mindy has with Kirby, and they mention that Psycho 2 is underrated. They disagree about which Friday the 13th movie is better, and I can't remember what the third one was, but I did genuinely agree with it, so that was kind of cool, I guess. So yeah, I don't know, you can watch this movie if you want. You'll probably get more out of it than I did. It's not as bad as the one that came out last year, but that still isn't saying much. It tries to do these clever things, it thinks it's smarter than it actually is. At the very least, it's violent and kind of darkly comical with its whodunit style mystery. So yeah, not my favorite in the franchise. It didn't quite anger or frustrate me, it just kind of left me wanting more. It has some good acting, some atrocious performances, some characters that are less annoying than others, some pretty awful dialogue, and a really, 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 really dumb story. And I'm giving this one a 4 out of 10.